Hi, my name is Mike Callahan, and I'd like to take a minute to tell you about an approach that I know you will want to learn more about. Now, we all know how tough it can be finding a job after graduation. But instead of following a strategy where you mail resumes to potential employers and then hope someone gives you a job, you can become an entrepreneur of your own career and learn how to prospect for opportunities to market yourself more effectively in today's job market. Sound interesting? Well, we call the approach I-Incorporated, or I-Inc for short. Now, I-Inc has three major areas of focus: getting to know yourself better, getting to know the job market better, and learning how to tell your personal story better. Now, let's start with getting to know yourself better. We will encourage you to take responsibility for your career and develop a very strong sense of self-efficacy and control in your life. We then want to help you develop a strategy to deal with the inevitable challenges that come along in your life. And lastly, we will help you learn ways to better understand your personal beliefs and expectations regarding your professional life. We then move to the work environment. You will be better able to identify and nurture your personal brand, learn how to identify underserved opportunities, and then develop a strategy and a personal value proposition that is targeted toward those opportunities where you can truly bring value to a potential employer. Lastly, in order to truly be successful in your job search, you must tell your personal story in a compelling manner. And we will help you improve your written and oral communication strategies, as well as improve your use of social media tools, especially LinkedIn. And then realizing that this is just the start, we have some ideas that will help you continue to build a strong and powerful personal career development strategy. Now, the process works. Students tell me about their successes in finding internships and regular placement opportunities. They tell me how much more confident they are when they're meeting with someone, and they encourage me to help other students with these ideas. And that's really the purpose of this video, to briefly introduce you to the concept, perhaps raise your interest level, and to encourage you to learn more about the process. Good luck.
Hi. Well, I hope that introductory video gave you a sense of what we're going to talk about, and I just want to go a little bit deeper into some of the concepts that we covered, and all within the context of an alternative approach to planning. So part of the idea is why is this important? I want to give you an alternative approach and really ultimately what it takes to make it work for you. Now, there's a lot of troubles that people are having in their job search. You know, they're sending out resumes and not having a lot of success, or they're unsure where the best opportunities are to be found. They're looking in the want ads, they're looking in Monster.com and Indeed, and those are good opportunities, but are they the best? And are they the best for you? And so people are unsure about where to find those best opportunities. They're unclear on how to best answer some of the key interview questions. And that's obviously critical in closing the deal and able to ultimately close the deal when you do get the interview and make something happen. So you might be stuck in some of these or all of these, and hopefully what we'll be talking about today will help you get unstuck. Now, here's the whole idea of why do we need a new approach. Traditionally, we tend to follow the hierarchical structure or the priority list on the left, where we focus on our resumes, maybe we check out the want ads, or we might work with an agency, maybe talk to colleagues, and we really don't have much time to get down here into the contacts or referrals or inside of the company. One, because you don't know how. Two, because you don't have enough time. You're busy doing other things, and so you wind up focusing on resumes and want ads. That's how people look for a job. And this is the way jobs are filled. If somebody's going to hire somebody, First off, they look in the company, they talk to their colleagues, they look for referrals. There's lots of employers that I work with, and they might not even have a job posted, but they say, when the right person comes along, I'm going to make a room for them. So the idea here is that we want to help you change your behavior and think differently so that you're able to operate on the right-hand column instead of being in the left-hand column. And one of the things you should notice on the right-hand column is resumes are literally at the bottom. That's the last place that people go if they're going to hire somebody. They want somebody to recommend them. They want to have something backed up. They want it to be somebody that they've met in a networking event, something like that. And that's where you want to be able to operate and be excelling on this side of the equation. So that's really what we're focusing on, is think differently, behave differently, and operate on the right-hand column. Now, the idea is things like resume and interview and all those are content items, and they're critical. You got to have them, of course. But we want to talk about the context of how you're operating before you focus on the content. And the context that I'm offering you to consider is one of thinking like an entrepreneur. It doesn't mean you got to start your own business. Maybe you'll do that, and that's certainly okay for some folks. But for the majority of folks, they're going to go work for some company or in some kind of capacity like that. But it's valuable if you think like an entrepreneur. So that's the context that I want to encourage you to think about. So before you dig out the resume and try to practice some keywords or how you're going to answer the interview questions, think about the context. What does it take to think like an entrepreneur? And so that's the first part of our model here is, exploring your passion and doing some things where you're learning to think more effectively like an entrepreneur. Now, some self-assessment. There's a whole list of them out there that you might want to consider. Holland is great for some personality types that relates you to different kinds of careers. A lot of people use Myers-Briggs. That's a really good one to use. Don't use these self-assessments, though, as something that will obviously tell you exactly what you need to do, but they do give you insight into who you are and what's important and what are you looking for. So take some time to reflect, self-assessment, understand yourself. And then the second part is really this developing thinking like an entrepreneur. Talk to people that are entrepreneurs. The idea is that an entrepreneur takes responsibility, is always looking for opportunities. Career plan is very similar to a business plan. They're doing informational interviews. Entrepreneurs are always looking for opportunity. And so in informational interviews, when you go out and talk to someone and say, what does it take for me to be successful in your career, in your industry, and that sort of thing. Not, do you think this is a good resume? That's not an informational interview. The informational interview is, what does it take for me to be successful? And you should go talk to alumni, you should talk to family, friends, other people in business, but get some good input and think like an entrepreneur. Entrepreneurs always scanning the horizon, looking for opportunities. You're using the marketing principles, product, place, price, and promotion. It pertains to being an entrepreneur, running your own business, and it pertains to you as a someone who's thinking like an entrepreneur. Product is you, place is where you do it, price is what you charge or what you get paid, and promotion is how do you market yourself. So those concepts are very, very relevant in both running a business, but also thinking like an entrepreneur. And you got to know your stuff. You got to know your business and who you are and have some drive to get out there and do it. Now, if you take what I've said to heart and you start doing it, it can create a certain amount of anxiety in your life. And I love the sailing metaphor because if you haven't had any training and you get on a boat like this, it can really scare you because you don't think it's in control. Where in reality, this boat is under complete control. The pilot, the person who's driving it, knows exactly what he's doing. Everything is exactly the way that boat is designed. And so think about the sailing metaphor in your life. But it's really kind of, you go through what we call survive, adapt, and flourish. You deal with change, and you got to get through the immediate change. You have to adapt. So if you're going to sail, you're going to have to learn how to sail, and then flourish. And then when you ultimately come out the other end, you're an experienced sailor. And that's the same with life. You know, you embrace the wind. You got to have wind to go anywhere. So you can turn wind into something in your favor, and not just let it blow you all over the lake. So again, take control, think like an entrepreneur, and be prepared to go through a survive, adapt, and flourish kind of cycle. Now, the second part of this thing is discover the opportunities. And there's three pieces of this: your brand, underserved need, and the value proposition. And those elements are kind of this: who wants to pay me? Who am I, and what am I good at doing? And they translate into meeting the underserved need, the value that you bring, and your personal brand. And I want to be sure that you pick up the difference between personal brand is what do you want people to know about you, and what is important to you, and what do you want to know about yourself? It's kind of your soul. It's what's really important to you. The value proposition is what you bring to the market. Now, hopefully, your brand and value proposition are in sync, but they're separate. They're a little separate concepts. So I've got a video that I want to briefly show you. It'll go into this concept a little bit deeper. But again, the brand is who are you? What are you really good at is the value proposition. What is your superpower? And then what opportunities yet to be taken. So let's take a minute, watch this brief video, and then we'll come back.
You know, sometimes our careers are confusing, and it can be hard to literally see the forest for the trees. Hi, my name is Mike, and I want to help you understand how your personal brand, your value proposition, and underserved needs can be combined into your personal sweet spot. Now, there are three elements that make up the sweet spot, and they're all interrelated. They're distinct, but they're connected. And the first is your personal brand. It's who you are. It's what's important to you. It's what you stand for. The second piece of this is your value proposition. It's the value that you bring to the job market. It's your superpower. And lastly, there's the underserved need. It's the opportunities that are out there waiting for you to tap into them and bring your personal value proposition to them. Now, your personal career sweet spot is where all of this comes together and where all three of those things are in unison. And that's what we want to help you understand.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that. It's just give you a sense for that sweet spot. It's really important. A lot of people are only operating in one or two of those areas, and they're leading lives of quiet desperation. They're not leading the life that they are capable of leading. So be sure you're focusing on your brand, your value proposition, and finding the unmet need and the underserved need. And then the third piece of this is telling your story. And the idea is you're telling a story. It's not just a laundry list of a bunch of things that you've done, but rather it's the story of what you're capable of doing and the value that you bring to a given organization. So be sure you kind of take that to heart. Now, for instance, in a resume, you can put something on the list that says you worked with businesses to carry out United Way fundraising goals. That's okay. But something much stronger would be partnered with over 20 area businesses, raising $15,000 for United Way, exceeding the goal by 23%. Now, I know that we all don't have those kinds of things all sitting there in our repertoire of activities, but you want to be building them. So when you're doing things, keep notes, write down what the accomplishments are. And you always want to have three elements. What did you do? Who did you do it to, or who was the recipient of whatever you did, and what was the outcome? So what? If you work with businesses and that's all you say, it's like, so what? But if you partnered with area businesses and you raised money, the money is that we raised $15,000 and we exceeded the goal. So that's the so what. So again, what did you do? What did you do it to or with, or who was the impact? Who was impacted, and what was the result? So think about that, and then what you want in the resume are examples of what you've done using that formula that demonstrate your sweet spot. Now, it's easy for me to say that, but that's the challenge. That's what you're working for, so that you've got something that demonstrates your brand, that you work in serving United Way and nonprofits. That's kind of part of your brand. The superpower is that you're a partner and that you're able to get out there and generate, say, revenue or donations. And then lastly, you found it in an opportunity where there's a great and there's a very strong need, and you can have an impact. When those three things come together, again, it's in your sweet spot, and you relate to it in your resume, and you use those concepts. What did I do? Who did I do it to, or with, and what was the outcome? You're going to have you're telling a good, powerful story instead of just listing a bunch of things that you've done. Now, interviewing in person and phone calls, a lot of the same thing, but there's a couple of things in interviewing that I want to be sure that we point out. Now, one of the techniques that recruiters use a lot is something called situational interview. And the whole idea here is they create a hypothetical situation, and then they want you to give an answer to how you would handle that hypothetical situation. So for instance, a deadline for a project is near. How are you going to meet it? What are you going to do? Or a customer comes in angry and upset. How would you handle it? And what they're looking for is leadership. So keep that in mind and think about, how can I be a leader in these given situations? Now, a way to frame that leadership is this idea called value. And what I'd encourage you to think about it in terms of, leaders are able to have a vision for what they want to accomplish. They're able to align resources against that vision. They put things in place to make sure everyone understands what we're trying to accomplish. And they put controls and execution processes in place to be sure that we enact the vision that they've created. So if you want to have an answer that is comparable to what a leader would do in one of those given situations, simply say, well, my vision would be that we would always meet all the deadlines on time. I would align the resources. I'd be sure that all the people are working on this, and that we've got focus on what needs to be done. I'd ensure that everyone understands where we're going, and I'd put controls in place to make sure that we're going to deliver on what we said we would do. Something like that. And if you use the value context, then there's all sorts of questions you can get asked. But again, if they're situational questions, that's what you want. You want to respond with a leadership response. And again, the leadership should have the vision, alignment, understanding, and enactment. And enactment's probably the most important, because that's what you're going to do, how you're going to follow through on it. So be sure you have those four components. The flip side is there's the potential for behavioral interviews. And a behavioral interview is, give me an example of how you behaved in the past. The best predictor of future performance is past performance. And so if you can tell me you're going to do anything, but if you tell me how you dealt with a specific situation in the past, maybe how you had to deal with a policy that you did not agree with, or that you were faced with a stressful situation, and how did you deal with that stressful situation, it's a pretty good indication that's how you're going to behave when you come work for us, when you're faced with a similar kind of situation. So again, have a few examples of that, but think about it in terms of, again, in what we mentioned earlier, what did you do, what was the outcome, and who cares. But we also like you to consider using what's called STAR. It's an acronym for when you're describing behavioral responses. And it's you describe the situation, the task that you had to do, the action that you took, and the result. And if you happen to be interviewing for a position with Ford, the auto company, you would want to use CARD. Circumstances, action, results, and what would you do differently? And so either of those, it's good to also have that D at the end that says, what did I learn from this? Because even if it didn't work out as good as you could have had it, you learned something, and that's valuable too. So use it as an opportunity to both demonstrate results and impact and things that you can do, but also something that you've done to learn from the process. And here's a video we have on behavioral interviewing that I hope you enjoy.
I need to prepare for this job interview, but how do I begin? I think I'll call Sharon. She is a recruiter.
Hi, Mark. Sure. People will ask you to tell them about a time when you had to do something that was difficult. You need to learn to be a star.
STAR. What does that mean? How can that help me in my interview?
It's really straightforward. STAR stands for Situation, Task, Action, and Result. Remember, you're telling a story, so the story starts with the situation that you're describing. Set the stage so that the listener gets a good understanding of the specific situation. Next, describe the task or responsibility that you had in the role. What was your job? Then, you explain the specific action that you took that helped address the challenge in the professional and thoughtful manner. And then, describe the results you accomplished in terms of helping people in the organization, or serving the customer, or helping improve the profitability of the company.
That's great, Sharon. Thanks. I can think of a lot of examples where I had a positive impact, and the STAR approach really helps me tell the story. Thanks again.
Learn to be a star. Situation, task, action, and result.
Okay, and then the last piece of this, telling your story, is using something like social media and LinkedIn. If you don't have a LinkedIn account, I really encourage you to get one. They're used very heavily by recruiters. Recruiters will check you out on LinkedIn. You can look and learn about the recruiters of the companies on LinkedIn. It's a really good resource for you to tap into alumni and other people to help you get informational interviews set up. And remember, when you're using LinkedIn, it's not, you can put your resume out there, but it's much more powerful if you take advantage of it and you're telling the story. So maybe you got a little bit of a headline and then set the mood. You're the story's narrator. And give them pictures, give them videos, files, text, a variety of ways to craft the story that you're trying to tell. And be sure you use words that average people can understand. Don't load it up with acronyms or jargon that only people in a specific industry might be able to understand. You want this to be generalizable enough so that a recruiter can read it and understand it, and that it's got general words Don't make them really specific, but make them about the story that you're trying to tell. And again, what did you do? Who'd you do it with? And what was the outcome? Keep going back to that formula, but use that information and use the wealth of resources that you've got in LinkedIn instead of just text. Okay, so that pretty much wraps up what I wanted to cover with you today. If you want any more information, here's a link to my website, and just choose to contact us. So go ahead and write that down, access it, and if you're interested, there's a click where you just say contact us, send me an email, and we'll reach out to you and see if we can help you. We do a variety of things. We run workshops, we do one-on-one counseling, we do a variety of ways to help people develop their careers. So we'll contact you and we'll work out something that would work well for you. And or you can pick up a copy of my book, I Incorporated, Career Planning and Personal Entrepreneurship. It is on Amazon and available. So hope you enjoyed that. Hope you got something out of it and a different kind of perspective. And good luck in your career pursuits.